Some of the first recorded artists and craftsmen in history are found in the Bible. Bezalel is a great example of an artist who, being responsible for the designing of the Tabernacle of Moses in the desert, has had his memory honored at Israel's largest art institution, the Bezalel School of the Arts. And as for music, the Psalms of King David have inspired so many throughout history. But what does this mean for Israel today? For a generation who's grown up with modern tools and digital media at their fingertips? I've started off my journey in Jerusalem. Here, the stone and ruins don't quite seem like the backdrop for an aspiring artist trying to make their mark. I've come to the Cloud Building in downtown Jerusalem to meet Matan, a Bezalel graduate who 10 years ago realized his dream to transform this ancient city by sculpting the urban landscape of the modern city center. Maybe tell me a little bit about Muslala and what really inspired you to start this movement?
Muslala is an organization that is about transforming Jerusalem to the cities that we want to live in. So most of us are just normal city people that take care of their environment. And we do it collectively because this is how we have impact. And right now we're entering into our public house, let's say. And that we are transforming into actually to a public space that is hosting everything, starting from events, conventions, even weddings. So the Cloud Building that is beneath us was supposed to be the heart of Jerusalem. Yeah? In the 70s, after the 6 Days War, they wanted to create a center, because the city got expanded so much, so they wanted to create a center that will draw back to it all the residents that went to the outskirts. And the idea was that it would be everything. It would be banks, shops, offices, the most fancy movie theater, and so on. And they did a few mistakes on the way, and it failed. And what we're trying to do here is create a space that offers a new vision to the building and actually creating a new heart to Jerusalem. I was thinking of cities as a creation that is actually the biggest human creation. Yeah? A joint project that lasts for centuries, and this is what we've been building for the last few thousand years, right? Especially a city like Jerusalem.
How do you see Jerusalem being a canvas, sort of keeping in mind its history thousands of years?
So Jerusalem is the meeting point of all cultures, religions. Everybody passed through this city. And we think as art, as a medium of creating this encounter. So the idea of Muslala is to think about the city as a canvas. That we invite artists, and we do our own work on the streets, on the parks, on every place that is open to the public.
One of those places is on the roof, where they've taken space sealed off to the public for almost 30 years and reopened it back to the community. Here, they seem to have embraced a rural approach to this urban landscape.
In Hebrew, it's called Gag Eden, paradise rooftop, because what we believe is that the rooftops is our possibility to create paradise. Why? Because it's huge spaces that today are totally unused.
They're unused.
The moment we do this switch and we start to use rooftops as gardens, as parks, as place for recreation, this will be the moment the city will turn green, right? So what we're doing is creating an inspiration center, laboratory for things that can happen on rooftops. So we have different explanations of how do you grow vegetables, how you do compost, how you grow bees, how you grow apples, because we are trying not to buy new materials. So we have here store of lots of used materials, and then everything that we build, we try to build it from recycled materials.
Right.
And we believe that, the trash of one person can be the gold of somebody else if he has the touch for it.
One thing Matan had to show me were the bees, an essential part of their urban garden and a template for an urban oasis.
We look at the bees kind of like of teachers.
Okay.
They can teach us how to live in harmony in cities.
Wow.
Like this is a mini city, and they created the perfect society that is totally altruistic. We teach here actually something that is very important to Jerusalem, that is not to be afraid of the other. Yeah, like when we entered here, all of you were terrified, bees, 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 right?
Right.
But then slowly, you start to say, hey, wow, bees. You start to change it. And after 20 minutes, if we had the time to give you a deeper explanation about them, you'll be holding them with your hands.
Jerusalem seems to have welcomed the world of fine arts into her midst, and this can be seen in the market, the commercial centers, many festivals, and more. But what about music? This building has also attracted people like Ido Spitalik, who's the brain behind the Jerusalem Street Orchestra, an urban movement to bring classical music to the streets of Jerusalem.
We discovered it as a very, very good space for classical music. So it turned out that it has really perfect acoustics for classical music. And we already had 3 major concerts here. The way we do it is the orchestra is down there, like in the pit, in a way like in the opera. And all the audience are all around in this spiral. I think for a regular person, it looks like a disadvantage. But actually for the street orchestra, it's an advantage because everybody knows this place as a very ugly place, a place that nobody goes there. And the fact that we put in the, let's say, ugliest space in the city, the most beautiful music in the world, this contrast is very, very strong. And just if you judge the space, objectively, it's very big. It can contain a lot of people. It has the shape that actually looks a little bit like the Berliner Philharmonie, if you know, in Berlin. That the audience is all around the orchestra. It's very high, so it's resonant in a very, very good way. It actually enhances the experience for the audience.
So Ido, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the Jerusalem Street Orchestra.
The street orchestra is basically a classical orchestra, but we try to outreach to new audiences by changing the venues, changing the locations we play. Naturally, most of the time, what we do is we bring classical music out to the streets, but sometimes for some reason, we have a project inside a concert hall, so we make an effort to bring the street into the
into the concert hall. That's incredible.
And the main idea is to approach people that would never come into the classical concert hall. And by changing the atmosphere and the location, we, in a way, open the door for other people to see and to hear the music and to decide for themselves whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Last December, we did our first opera production in a car repair shop in Talpiot industrial area. And we had 850 people coming. It was sold out. Actually, more than sold out.
In a car repair shop. That's great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've seen your music, the music of the Jerusalem Street Orchestra, bring people together from different backgrounds?
Yeah, you can see it in every concert. Of course, it differs from venue to venue. But when we do our street concerts in the summers, especially when we do it here in the center of Jerusalem, the people just, they see that there is a concert, they just stop. And the variety of people standing together, having a common, a common shared experience, a shared cultural experience. They are having, you know, they are listening together.
Yeah.
This is super important, you know, we're not listening enough generally in our lives.
I've made my way west to the coast of Israel, to the neighborhood of Florentine in the midst of Tel Aviv-Yafo or Jaffa. This is where art meets music and can be seen from the dozens of recording studios and workshops scattered throughout the neighborhood. Street art, galleries, and producers share this cluster of just 2 or 3 streets. I met up with Yuvi, a music producer, studio engineer, and inventor, whose recording studio is right here in the heart of Florentine. So here we are in Florentine.
Yeah, we're in the heart of Florentine. See, there's a lot of street art here. A lot of people express themselves. There's buildings which are run down, and then there's super new buildings.
Wow.
So it's the neighborhood is really changing, actually. But you know, wherever you go, if you ask 2 people, one of them will be an artist, and the other one will be a musician, probably.
So how does that work? I mean, obviously in a community with artists and musicians, I'm sure they sort of can feed off of each other and off of creativity.
I mean, I can see the art here and get inspired to make music. So the community is growing from that. And you know, you can feel it in the street. There's a lot of creative energy and life here.
Wow, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because the country is, you know, it's a little over 70 years old only.
Yeah.
And just to see, I mean, none of this was here 100 and something years ago. I mean, you know, it's just built up. And so Israel is sort of on fast forward, you know?
Yeah, true. And that's why they built this neighborhood very, very quickly, because they had, you know, immigrants coming to Israel and making aliyah, and they had to put them somewhere. So they built this neighborhood very quickly. And that's what we're left with now in terms of infrastructure and stuff.
Infrastructure, some architecture, different things like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the prettiest neighborhood in Tel Aviv, but it's definitely the most.
But it's got
unique.
A lot of character.
Yeah,
it's really
and
cool.
the art, you know, the street art is making everything even cooler.
Yeah.
I think.
Wow.
I started out as a guitar player, actually, and I studied at the Music Academy in Jerusalem. And my goal in life was to be the best guitar player in the world. You know, that was like the thing. I had that fire. But then when I studied music, I actually kind of switched into production, more music production, because I was interested in how to produce a whole band instead of just myself playing. And I really got into production, but at the same time I had a band and we were touring, and that was great fun.
What kind of band was it?
It was a funk hip-hop band, actually, and we toured a lot in the States and in Europe.
What's the feel of the music that's produced around here? Maybe it's not all the same, but maybe there's similarities, but what's the feel of it? You know, maybe if you can describe what it sounds like. You know?
I would say in every scene, there are a few different genres here, you know, so like you would have in the States, you know, like the rock and the jazz and the funk and hip hop, but it's because it's smaller, then it's more unique, you know, and if someone makes funk music, then they're the best funk band in Israel, you know, and I think there's this kind of edge to the music here, which I really love.
Why do you think that is?
It's hard to tell exactly. Maybe because of the place that we live in, you know, and the influence that we have. So you can have like music that would be influenced from here, from Israel, or from like Middle Eastern sounds, which you wouldn't normally get like in the States or, you know, in European music.
Yeah.
So we get this influence, and also because it's so, you know, small and concentrated, people have to be the best, and they're like. They can take it to their limits and be kind of edgy and not really care, because they're not going to be mainstream. Most likely they're not going to be mainstream and, you know, tour around. Maybe they're going to tour, but they can be edgy and be loyal to their art. So let me show you something else that I'm doing, except for music production. I'm really into electronics. So I built this huge instrument. I'm going to show you the video.
You built an instrument.
I built it with a couple of friends,
Wow.
of course, not on my own. So basically you have the green light, which is the tempo, and then wherever I place a ball, when the green light hits it, it makes a sound.
Okay.
So that way I can build a drum beat and then a bass line.
So the blue there is the drum beat.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's hear.
So you're laying the foundation here.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the foundation is the drum notes, drum sounds, and then the other color is the bass.
Okay.
I'm actually making a tribute to a famous song here.
Yes.
Tell me.
Yeah. Little Michael Jackson here for us.
Yeah, Billie Jean.
This is good.
It can really teach kids, you know, and anyone actually how music is made, because that's something you didn't, you know, if you don't make music, you don't really think about it.
Sure, absolutely.
So
you
you
can
can
definitely grab their attention. Really.
Yeah, and you can actually learn something. Maybe someone will get into electronic music from this thing. That's my goal. Like, you know.
Oh, that's great.
It's fascinating to see an artistic community thriving in a place where no more than 100 years ago was nothing but sand dunes. Thinking about the story of Israel and the accomplishments makes me realize how hard it must have been for people to think about art when the most important thing at the time was to survive and build their country. It's amazing to see how creativity thrives in community and during times of hardship. And that brings me back to Jerusalem, where I met up with Kobe Fridge, a local personality who has recently spearheaded an exhibit honoring Jerusalem's colorful past.
So Kobe, tell us, where did all these windows come from?
This is a really touching project because we had a big friend, good friend named Yoram Amir. He's an artist that he collects these windows in the last 20 years in Jerusalem. They are all windows from houses in Jerusalem, and it really tells the story of the city. Maybe in the last 150 years, all the concrete that were here, all the people that ruled Jerusalem and built in the city. Yoram used to say that Jerusalem is like a bride, and the houses is like jewelry, and the windows is like the diamonds of the city. And he was an activist and inspiration for many artists, and he used to collect them. At the beginning, he was a photographer just for a framing for his pictures, but then it became like obsessed about the windows and collect them and also show the different, how they used to build in the past in the city and how do they build today, and our responsibility to keep the city beautiful and alive.
Why did you choose this location? It's in the middle of the city.
This place actually was really dodgy. It was the toilet here, and there was not a nice scene here, and very quiet at night and like dodgy. But Yoram decided, you know, we went with Yoram to a few locations in the city center, and he said, I want to do it here. And also we're doing kind of also healing for places, amazing at night, and people come and hang out, families, children, and it's amazing change in a really short time.
I went back to Muslala for a community apple pick. There, I had a chance to talk to Ella Gill, the initiator of this project.
Pretty good.
When we started this place 3 years ago, we started working at what we called content centers.
Okay.
So I was in charge of all the content that had to do with urban ecology. So urban agriculture and practical stuff like herbalism, making stuff, you know, food salvaging, stuff like that. We have apples, we have plums, we have figs, we have mulberries, guavas. And the apples have been the most plentiful. So ever since we got the trees, because it's such an extraordinary opportunity, every year when the apples are ripe, we invite everyone, and it's kind of like a community event. We invite everyone that wants to come to just pick apple off the tree, because for a lot of people that live in the city, that's not something that you get to do ever.
Right.
And it's a very unique opportunity to be doing it on the top of a building in the middle of the city.
What kind of impact do you think it has, like on someone who lives in the city here in Jerusalem, And Jerusalem can be, having spent a lot of time here, it can be a pretty intense place to live, right?
Right.
In general.
Yeah.
So what do you think it means to the community to be able to come up here and just take sort of a break and take a breath and just sort of connect?
That's what
the
we're
idea.
trying to do, yeah. That's what we also, part of our framework is we call this place, it's an urban oasis.
Yeah.
And we think about it as like creating a gap, creating
Yeah.
space in the middle of the city. And because I think in a wider context, because Israel is so dense and so
Right.
populated,
Right.
so urbanized, we have to live in cities. I feel like we have to have these places.
To cap off the day, I went back to see the Jerusalem windows lit up at night. This is where you get a chance to see how art really can build a community, as you see family and friends enjoying a summer evening in the park.
So I think one of the things about art that's really interesting and actually pretty amazing is that it sort of forces you to really look below the surface and sort of look at the deeper meaning. Particularly this place really helps you to sort of understand Jerusalem from a deeper place and helps you to understand this city in another way that you wouldn't probably see on the surface by walking on the streets or, you know, going to tourist sites or whatever it is. So in this place, just surrounded by all these families, actually sort of makes me miss my family, seeing all these kids everywhere that are my kids' age. So actually, I miss them quite a bit, and so I actually think I'm gonna go FaceTime them now, so.